Okay, so we are going to do the distance formula. What you need to know is that it is also used when you're on a coordinate plane. So it comes from the Pythagorean theorem. So if I had A and I had B, now I want to know how long segment AB is. What we can do is create, or what we are essentially doing is creating a right triangle. So if you knew how long this piece was and how long that piece was, and do your Pythagorean theorem of a leg squared plus the other leg squared equals a hypotenuse squared. Here's a leg squared, here's another leg squared, that is going to equal AB. We're not always going to want to do that, so we are going to use a formula. And where it comes from, like I said, it is derived from the Pythagorean theorem. So it is derived from the Pythagorean theorem. It is, in this case, we would do AB equals, so I would have A would be the ordered pair of x sub 1, y sub 1, and B would be the ordered pair of x sub 2, y sub 2. It does not matter what order you put these in. AB equals the square root of x sub 1 minus x sub 2, that quantity squared, plus y sub 1 minus y sub 2, that quantity squared. That is the distance formula. If you are using the distance formula and, for example, if I know that C is at the order pair of -1 and 2, and D is at the order pair of 3 and -2, and I want to find out what is the length of CD. Put it in the distance formula. So CD equals square root of, it might help if you want at the very beginning to label these as x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2, so you don't get them messed up in your formula. X sub 1 is -1, minus is part of the formula, x sub 2 is 3, squared, plus y sub 1 is 2, minus is part of the formula, a -2, and that is also squared. -1 minus 3 is a -4 squared, plus minus and negative is a +4 squared. So CD equals the square root. This is where people mess up right here, because if you put that into your calculator, depending on what kind of calculator you have, it's either going to spit out 16 or a -16. So you need to understand how your calculator is working, and you also need to understand that anytime you square a number, it has to be positive. So no matter what your calculator spits out, you need to understand that it is going to be a +16 plus another +16 for 4 squared. So CD equals the square root of 32. Put that in your calculator. Your square root button on these is the second. So if I'm looking for the square root of 32, I have the square root, which is the second function of the squared button. Oopsie. So you should end up with that on your screen, 32. Depending on your calculator, you may have to put parentheses at the very end. And it's going to be approximately equal to 5.7, depending on what it is that you are asked to round to. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is for warm-up is to do an activity. And it is given RS, and R is at the order pair of 2 and 4, and S is at the order pair of -1 and 7. What are the coordinates of the midpoint? That is part 1. In part 2, what is the length? Of segment RS. Remember, length means distance.